Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Learn This with Mahesh. Today I would like to show how I fixed my ingredient scanner, a small app which was deployed on Cloud Run. So I'm going to show how I fixed it. So now you may think like it's your application, so how do you fix it? It's not my headache. So if you think in that angle, so the possible another title which you can think is improving the debugging skills. So assume there is a Cloud Run service which has been deployed and it is having some errors. The image is in container registry, which is the most the only satisfying stuff in this case. The source code is not in the Git repository, a bad design, so not good agile practice has been followed and software methodology has been followed here. So that is the reason the code is not pushed into the Git repository. The developers have left the organization, so there is no support. The only support is the image is in the artifact registry. That is the current scenario. So how you will fix it? So this could be the other alternative title for this video. So if you're interested, so let's get started and try to fix the Cloud Run application. So before we do that, a quick shout out. So I was supposed to start the customized data engineering and cloud architect training on today, which is 20th of July, but the number of learners were less, so I have postponed the class to 27th. So if you're interested, I'll put the link in my video, so you should be able to register if you're interested. So with that as the stuff, let's go ahead and fix the stuffs. So as I mentioned in my channel 5 months back, I had posted this video. So how basically you can scan packaged food kind of a stuff. So if you click on the video, you will come to this. So clicking on this link is the Cloud Run service which has been deployed. So this shows nicely. So if I go ahead and scan for, say for example, a image which has some glossary item, or maybe we can take this one, snack, some ingredients list. Basically this is what it shows. Now if I go and click on ingredient scanner, that is where the problem comes. So any viewer who's interested in looking into this, and when they do it, they will get the same issue. So I thought, okay, let me come and fix this part. So looking at this, it very clearly shows the generative language googleapis.com. This API has been blocked is what it very clearly shows. The first debugging step is I'll go look into whether this API has been enabled or not. So let's do that. I'll go to my specific project. So if I don't know the project details, it should be this one. So that is a project number. So let me copy that. Go to this, and if I do Control F, I can easily see that if I have multiple projects, so I'll come to know this has been deployed in this project. Good. Okay, so next I'll go to APIs and services. I'll go to credentials and see what are the credentials there. There are two API keys, which is a twist here. And before I go into which API key is being used, I would first verify whether this generative language has been enabled or not. So for that, you need to go to libraries, and we are in the right project. So if I search for that, we will verify that it has been enabled. So there's no issue with the API itself getting disabled. So it is possible that the credentials are basically expired, or there's some issue. There are two API keys which I have. So it could be deployed using service account also. It could be deployed also using API key. So assuming it was basically deployed using API key, there are two API keys. So the first one is having no restrictions. That's what it indicates, meaning, so definitely this API key would not have been used because there's no restriction. API is enabled. In this key, this API is not going to be, this API key will not be utilized. So it is possible that this is the API key one is possibly used. Now the reason is it has some restriction put. So you have the option of restricting the API key to a specific service. So where it shows it has been restricted to one service called as batched and API demo. So this was one of the demo which I had used in the previous batch of Cloud Architect. So none of the services are basically enabled. So if I just basically put generative this thing, so this API is not enabled. So it is paused. Sorry, this API has not been enabled. So now we still go with the best practice of using restricted APIs, and we have enabled those two things. So it should be good. Now, if you ask me to be very frank, using the API key is not really a good choice. You have to use something like service account. That's always going to be a good choice. But this was a simple app, so that is the reason API key was used. So now it has been enabled. What we can do is we can refresh this page now and do the same thing. So snack done. So let me just go ahead and do this. Boom. So we have fixed one issue, and in your everyday's work, right, you will definitely would have seen it. Once you fix one issue, it is going to give rise to another issue. So it's going to be a kind of a chain reaction. So I guess most of you agree to that. So we have fixed the first issue, which is the API getting blocked. We have basically checked the API is enabled, and we had made sure what is the API key used, and in that API key we have made sure generative language .googleapis.com has been enabled. So that is all good. So now we are going to the next one, which is like an ongoing activity which we have to do, because Google is basically very aggressive in the generative AI space now. So if you look at this video was created 5 months back. So I had used basically Gemini Pro. Now looking at the error, it indicates that Gemini Pro 1.0 is deprecated on 12th of July. So now I have to switch to something else like Gemini 1.5 Flash. Now the problem is I don't have the source code. I have to verify it. So how do I do that? So that is where this is going to be a lifesaver. So let's go ahead and look into this piece. So literally I don't have my source code. So if you go look into this video, I had done everything in the Cloud Shell, and that Cloud Shell had some issue. I had to remove all the content. So now I don't have really the source code. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to artifact registry. And see, I have these things. So fortunately I have made a specific repo called as ingredient. So meaning it is possible that this is the container registry. So yeah, February is what it was done basically. So February 27. So good. So February to now, it's almost like 5 months roughly. So this is the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically pull this image into my Cloud Shell. So once the image is pulled, what we are going to do is we are going to check whether everything is correct or not. So how do we do that? So the image has been pulled. Docker images. This is the first command. So it is verified that it has been pulled basically. Good. Now I need to see whether the source code is there. So in the Docker, the container image or the Docker image, the source code will be always there. So I wanted to know what was the stuff written, what Gemini version was mentioned. So what I can do is I can use these two commands, run in a daemon mode. So I can use, and this is basically Spring Light is what is usually my understanding. So usually we'll see at the top. That is one thing. If you are not familiar with these Python stuffs, no worries. You can go to your Cloud Run and find out what is a port, right? So we don't have this information. What port? Usually it is 8080, but it is possible that it is not listening on that port. So for that, go look into your Cloud Run service, and you should be able to see what is a port on which it is running. So if you click on revisions, you should be able to know the details of it, and it is very clear the port is running on 8501. So a little bit more on this thing, Streamlight default port, that's what it indicates. So which is good. So let's go ahead and make sure 8501. So that's in the port, in the Cloud Shell, on which port I want to listen on, and in the container, what is the port it is listening on. So that is what I'm going to mention. So this is my image. So I'm going to run it. So, okay, this is something already running. So, because I was trying to show this basically, so I'll check this process. So there was a previous one which I was preparing for this demo. What I will do is I'll stop this. Pretend as if like you have not seen this step. So let's remove this stop. So now let's go ahead and run this command docker run. So it is running. So now if you do docker process, it is going to show there is a stuff running, right? This is all good. Now what we can do is this two steps are going to be the important stuff. One is docker run. So on which port to run, you do get it from the Cloud Run service. The second thing is docker execute. This is going to be sometimes really a lifesaver. So I'm going to get into the container interactively, where this is my container ID. You can also use a container name if you want. So bash mode is what I'm going to try. I am in the container, which is good. Now if I put ls, I see these things. Now if I put cat, I would see the entire code which I had. So entire stuff is there. So this is the API key which I had used. So which if we just copy it and go to APIs and services, that way you can also verify it. So if you should not show the API key, but I'm going to disable this after this part. So this is the key. So which makes sense. So we are on the right track is what we can easily see it, which is good. Now going here, very clearly it shows Gemini Pro Vision. And that was the error it was also throwing us. So if I scan it one more time, so we have to change it, right? We have to change it. So what we need to do, is it 1.5 Flash or 1.5 Pro? Whatever is the one which you have to change it. Now, since I don't have the source code, what I'm going to do is a very crude way. I'm going to literally copy this. I'm going to copy this and I will put a new tab. Literally, so I'm not following something like a very strict process here. So I'm just going to make a directory. So scanner main.py. So that's the file which I'm going to do. So I have anyway copied it. I'm going to put it. So similarly, I will have the the requirements.txt file. So I'll also put that. Then I have to basically use Gemini or ChatGPT to help me get a container image or the Docker file, sorry, and I should be able to do it. So this one, I have to change it, right? So if you don't know what is the one to be changed, you should be able to go to this one. You'll be able to get what is a version, possible version which you wanted to use it. So if I click on get code, so this is what it shows. So I can go ahead and replace this piece. That's it. So that's all good. Now remaining everything, so I had already shown in the previous video the kind of prompt which I had put. So all those things have been put here. So we can also see how it is basically working. So in the last video I had mentioned, so it was an inspiration from Raven. So and basically Krish, who basically creates good Gen AI related videos. So I had put that. So I have now commented it off. So if we want, we can also uncomment it. So let's use Pro 1.5. So that's the small update which we have done. Good. Now I have one more file, which is the requirements.txt file. So it's only Streamlight. So it's only one requirement, which is Streamlight. I have added in the requirements.txt file. The next part is basically having a Docker file, which I don't have. So I'm going to use basically Gemini, where I'll put a prompt like generate a Docker file for Streamlight app exposed on. We know it is this port. So let's go ahead and generate the stuff, which is going to be using the latest version. So something of this sort, Streamlight So we should be able to copy it. This thing is there. So we may want to change this one to main.py. That's it. So I'm just going to copy this one. So which is all good. Now what I will do is I'll basically go ahead and build a container image and also push it to artifact registry. So which registry? We should be able to get this one. So this is another trick where you can save, instead of doing docker push and docker build and docker push, 2 steps, you can use cloud build. So I'm going to use this one. So what I will do is, we have all the necessary stuffs. So let me just look at the docker file once. Slim version. Okay. Requirements.txt file is copied. Okay, everything looks fine basically. So I'll just go ahead and use gcloud builds submit -t. So this is the one. So, and the version is going to be 1.4. So this should basically help us build a container image and also push it to artifact registry. Once it has been pushed, basically what we have to do is go and deploy a new version of Cloud Run. And finally, we'll not make the mistake of not having the source code in the Git repository. So we'll create a repo and push it. So the mistake, let's not do the same mistake. So a new mistake can be done. So let's not repeat the old mistakes. So let's wait for the Docker image to be built. It is possible that it may throw an error. So that could be another challenge. So let's just wait for it. I have not paused the video here. So waiting for it. And if we just to see real quick, I remember I had changed the version. Yeah, I had changed the version. So which is good. So let's just wait for it. So, and we are using a lightweight version of Python, the slim version. That's also another good practice. So if you have a bulkier one, the image size is going to become bigger. So we have seen some good number of best practices here. So let's go ahead and see. And the version 1.4 is getting pushed. So let's just wait. So once it is pushed, you should be able to see a new one. So it's not yet there. It is on the verge of getting pushed. So there are few layers which needs to be still pushed. So let's just wait for it. I purposely not pausing this video just to show that when you are doing something in a real time stuff, you'll definitely see hiccups. So just wanted to show that hiccups which I face. So it should not be something like a very nice video where every step works. It will not be like that. So I guess most of you will agree to me there. So let's wait for it. So it may take a little more time. So yeah, it is pushed. So now let's just refresh it. So it is now pushed. So we are good. Now what we can do is we should be able to go to our Cloud Run. There are different ways of deploying it. So I'm just going to take just this image, go to this one, edit, and have the new version. So the only change which I have to do is this image, change it to the one which is supposed to be working. So it may have new hiccups, who knows, but let's wait and see once the stuff has been deployed. So let's wait for it. Everything else remains the same. The port, all those things remain the same. It's just the container image where we have changed the Gemini version of it. Now, so if Google is very aggressive in changing the versions because they are so fast in this Gen AI space, what we can do as a best practice is maybe you can expose this as an environment variable. So building the container image, all those things is going to be not a good choice. Exposing that as a environment variable, and it is not a sensitive information, so that is also something possible. So you can expose it as an environment variable is what I feel would be a good choice, so that you can avoid changing the stuffs again and again. So you don't need to build an image for this, all those things. And definitely as a best practice, you can also have some good CI/CD process. The moment the code has been checked in, you can have all those things. So currently we don't have a repo, so we have to basically create a repo and push this also. So I'll add that as a small piece towards the end. And most of you know cloud source repository is deprecated. So if you have already had access, you can continue using it, but if it's a new one, it is not going to work. So we'll try to push it into a Git repository, a GitHub repository. So the deployment has been done. So fingers crossed. Let's see whether the stuff is going to work now. Okay. So, wow. Okay. What has happened is, because this has to be having, so I also made a mistake. So the module should have this one. So this is missing. So let's try to add this piece. Let's try to fix this part. The simple option which I can do is I can go to my main.py file, copy all the stuffs, and go ahead and put a prompt, something like generate a requirement for a text file for these import statement. I should be able to get it. So we had left basically Google-generative AI and Pillow. So these were the two requirements which was missed out. So we should be able to go ahead and update it. So that is good. So now no change in the Docker file. So we can go ahead and build our new image, which is 1.5. So once that is built, we should be able to go ahead and try it. Should work is my understanding. So 20 minutes back is what we had, 1.4. So soon we are going to build our other one. So we are almost on the verge of pushing the stuff. So let's just wait for a few more seconds and it should be done. The image has been pushed successfully, and if we look into artifact registry, we see the image has been pushed. So what we can do is we can go ahead and have a newer version, which is 1.5, and deploy it. So once this is deployed, hopefully this message, which is a no module name issue, should be resolved is my understanding. Let's wait for this to come up. So the stuff has been deployed, and now if we see it, we should have a better one, if I'm not wrong. Yes, the same screen which was seen 5 months back. Now let's go ahead and scan with the stuffs. So looking at the ingredients, all credit goes to Raven for teaching the entire community of India. So which is good and which is not good. So looking at this one at a high level, I can say, except the sugar piece, at least based on what I have learned, it looks like a okay kind of a snack. So let's see what ingredient scanner is going to basically say, which behind the scene is using Gemini 1.5 Pro. So it's going through. So the response is based on the prompt which we had mentioned. So it does not contain these things, which is good. There is a little bit of sugar which is there. So this product, while this product appears to be a wholesome ingredient like blah blah blah, so which is good. So this is okay. Presence of over so is not an ideal as a regular snack for kids. So on and off can be taken is what it shows. And we had also mentioned the prompt. What are the alternative stuffs? Good. So now let's try with one more stuff. A biscuit. So definitely it contains good amount of maida, palm oil, sugar, everything is there, so it should not be recommended. Let's see what does Gemini 1.5 Pro gives us a response, and definitely this could be tuned also. So it says yes, it has all these things, and it also mentioned explicitly it does not contain palm, because we had given various options of it. So the best is to limit. So the previous stuff was mentioning not to use it. Now it is the previous version. Now it says consume should it's best to limit this type of processed food for kids. Why? A more detailed explanation and alternatives as food is what it mentions. So good. So in last 30 minutes we were able to basically see how where it was throwing an error, now it is coming back to the same version with a small upgrade also. The final piece which needs to be done is this code needs to be checked into a Git repository, so that the major problem, so that was the main problem statement, if I would say. So if the code was in the repo, we would not have spent 30 minutes. So this kind of small mistakes can basically lead to a huger impact. So that's always good to follow the software development lifecycle, having the code in the repository. That's the most basic one, which was not done by me, so because of which I had to spend 30 minutes and do this. And by doing this, the only good part is we learned how to do the debugging piece. So as a summary, first we had the API issue. So the API key was not associated with the API, so we associated that. Then there was a version which was deprecated, then we added it, and in the process we did not have the source code. We had to get into the Docker file or the container image by using docker execute, got the source code, and then we created our entire stuff, and we leveraged Gemini for generating the Docker file and basically the requirements or text file. Once we have done this, we were able to achieve something like this. So that's the video which I wanted to share. So I hope you like the video. Thank you for watching.